I would like to introduce about our today's expert, Dr. B. Ratna Sunil. Sir, he has completed BE in Mechanical Engineering from Andhra University and ME, Master of Engineering from Usmania University, and PhD in Metallurgical and Material Engineering from IIT Madras. Currently, he is working as an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Bapatla Engineering College, Andhra Pradesh. Dr. Sunil actively involves in research and development in the areas of materials manufacturing technology, includes nanomaterials, biomaterials, welding of non-ferrous metals, composites, and surface engineering. So he has been awarded Erasmus Plus Staff Mobility Program in 2017-18 from European Commission, and he is Associate Fellow elected Andhra Pradesh Academy of Sciences in 2017, and he was awarded Sudarshan Bhatt Memorial Award for the best PhD thesis at IIT Madras in Chennai in 2015. And he got first runner prize for the best poster presentation in PANIIT Research Exposium at the Shastra 2014 in IIT Madras, Chennai. Also, he received Bajpai Saha Award, Society for Biomaterials and Artificial Organs. So he has published many number of international journals, 36 SCA journals and 40 Scopus journals and 16 other journals. He has got 14 patents and he has been invited 16 guest lectures. He has published one book in published by Taylor and Francis. He has written around 4 book chapters. So we are privileged to have such a great expert with us, and we would like to listen to Sir, and I hope you will be blessed by this session also. So over to Dr. Ratna Sunil sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Srinivas sir. I'm really happy to present this topic in AICT Atal sponsored FDP on novel materials, organized by Christian College of Engineering and Technology, Bhilai, Chhattisgarh. And first, I thank the organizers for giving this opportunity. And basically, I do research on magnesium-based materials, as are introduced. So I work both on biomaterials as well as structural materials applications. So the title of the presentation is, as mentioned, processing of novel lightweight magnesium-based materials. This is the outline of the presentation. We'll see the promising nature of magnesium for structural and other applications, the brief introduction, and then the basic processing of magnesium and magnesium alloys. That includes casting of magnesium alloys, forming of magnesium alloys, and welding of magnesium alloys, and machining of magnesium alloys, and developing magnesium-based composites, lamellar composites, particularly by powder metallurgy routes, and concluding remarks. So if you see the periodical table here, we see number of non-ferrous metals. Among them, magnesium, titanium, copper, zinc, aluminum based alloys and composites are widely used to fabricate different structures and components and parts in a wide range of industrial applications. So these are the most commonly used non-ferrous metals, apart from the available well-established iron system. In the manufacturing processes, it is well known that iron-based materials, steels, cast irons are widely used. Whereas when it comes to non-ferrous metals, very recently for lightweight applications and with a high strength to weight ratio for better performance, even for less fuel consumption in energy efficient applications. As we know, aluminum alloys are widely used, and very recently the interest is slowly shifting towards developing magnesium-based alloys and magnesium-based composites. There are a number of non-ferrous alloys which are used in industrial applications. Magnesium alloys, aluminum alloys, titanium alloys, copper alloys, and zinc alloys. And my presentation completely focused on magnesium alloys and the processing of magnesium alloys. Why magnesium alloys have now grabbed the attention of the researchers in the materials and manufacturing engineering domain for right from the structural applications to even for medical applications. So a few aspects we would like to present in this topic, and we'll see some case studies and some of our research results also. So basically magnesium is a material. It is a very difficult to process, but upon successfully using magnesium and its alloys as candidates to develop structures or components or parts, we can find number of potential applications, especially in transportation industry, automobile industry, aerospace, and other lightweight structures industries. Advantages with magnesium include low density and high specific strength compared with aluminum. The density of magnesium is 30% less than the aluminum, and the load bearing capacity of magnesium is higher than the aluminum. So this is the beauty of magnesium compared with the aluminum. And good magnesium is you can machine well. The ease of machining is good in magnesium based materials, and magnesium can be easily produced through casting, and therefore there are a number of casting methods have been developed to produce components using magnesium alloys, such as like high pressure die casting. And magnesium materials can be joined together by welding. However, we should use controlled environment. We should provide controlled atmosphere to avoid oxidation. And magnesium, another important property, promising property, is its excellent damping properties compared with the aluminum and other non-ferrous and steels. So that qualifies the magnesium alloys as a promising materials for developing structures where vibration arresting is prime important. So high thermal and electrical conductivity and high dimensional accuracy and stability compared with polymeric materials, even though it is light compared with aluminum. So even we compare with polymers also, because polymers are also lightweight materials. So magnesium being a metal will give better mechanical properties, and its resistance to aging and better electrical and thermal conductivity and ability to recycle the magnesium again and again to produce components are the advantages when we look into magnesium based materials. However, there are a number of limitations also we have. So that's why for the past 50-60 years, a lot of research is going on in developing new magnesium alloys composites to address these limitations for specific applications. So it's low elastic modulus and its brittleness compared with aluminum, and difficulty in mechanical processing at room temperature, and its limited strength and creep resistance at elevated temperatures. With respect to the temperature, the ability of the magnesium to withstand loads is compared with aluminum drastically decreased. And it's a high degree of shrinkage during solidification when we adopt liquid processing routes, and high chemical reactivity, especially when it is exposed to corroding environment. Compared with all other non-ferrous metals, magnesium undergoes very rapid corrosion. It is a big problem, and high corrosion rate because of high reactivity and less formability at room temperature. It has good machinability, but when it comes to formability, magnesium needs elevated temperature to deform. When it comes to forming of magnesium, we will see a couple of slides on that. And high inflammability. So this is a worry of people who work on magnesium usually. So they scare to operate magnesium. Steels and aluminum, other non-ferrous metals, comfortably people, they would like to work on, but when it comes to magnesium, the one important scaring factor is its inflammability. So if magnesium catches fire, then we no need to do anything. We don't have to do anything. Simply let it be consumed totally. So that is another big problem associated with magnesium. It's a high inflammable nature. And developing rod products is also difficult because of its crystal structure, basically. That also we'll discuss in a couple of slides. And need of new alloy systems which can exhibit better mechanical corrosion and other properties is the current hour of the research. So when we see the usage of magnesium, traditionally, maximum portion occupies the alloying element for developing aluminum alloys. So magnesium is one principal alloying element usually added to aluminum in developing several aluminum alloys. It takes the major fraction, and the next fraction is high pressure die casting to produce the components, magnesium based components. And then disulfication and also other applications are the important areas where we'll see consumption of magnesium for the past one century. And we'll see the role of different alloying elements, the influence of the chemical composition to influence the bulk properties of the developed alloys and composites, how different alloys they contribute. For example, lithium, addition of lithium, and addition of zinc and aluminum and manganese and copper will give those kind of alloys excellent specific strength at the light weight to bear the higher amount of loads, the ability to bear higher amount of loads. Whereas when we add additional elements like rare earths, like silicon, okay, yttrium, such elements, when we add to magnesium, the alloys which are developed from these elements, magnesium alloys, will give better creep resistance. And also, particularly magnesium silicon and magnesium aluminum and magnesium lithium based rare earth containing alloys will give us improved ductility along with the increased strength. And there are a number of processing routes which are developed to produce magnesium based composites, as well as particle and fiber reinforced composites. So this comparison will help us to understand the important role of alloying elements in improving or even affecting the bulk properties of magnesium alloys. So when we compare with aluminum and plastics, the magnesium usage nearly for the past 100 years, only you can see the historical usage, the overall production, tons of production for the past 100 years. When we compare, you can see here around 1920 until Second World War, 1940, you can see the peak of the magnesium consumption as a structural material, lightweight structural materials. And later all you can see comparison, all the years later also, the consumption of magnesium is slowly growing compared with the other materials. So this indicates magnesium is becoming one vital source for the lightweight structures to develop components and products, apart from the available aluminum alloys and also polymer based materials. Applications of magnesium involved everywhere, all kind of industries like marine, aerospace, automobile, locomotive. So when we are developing components using magnesium based materials, usually we consider three important factors: material, method of construction, and process, the technology what we use to produce the desired components. So material, when it comes to material, depending on the targeted application, what kind of properties must be required for magnesium alloys, we focus on such properties, for example, corrosion resistance or energy absorption or creep resistance or fatigue limit or degradation due to the mechanical contact, etc. Such properties we select. When it comes to biomedical application, toxicity and acceptance by the local host, what we call biocompatibility properties. So depending on the targeted application, we focus on the properties of the component that we get from the alloy, and method of construction, what kind of application, during the application, what kind of loads the structure will be subjected to, and then manufacturing process. In order to produce component, what is the appropriate manufacturing process that we select? So this is general criteria we select to produce any component from any alloy or any metal. Even for magnesium also, this is precisely we have to follow. And these are some photograph shows applications of magnesium in automobile components, automobile parts. And if you see the photograph, this is the earlier picture of an aeroplane that was intended to be developed by magnesium based alloys long back because of its lightweight property. And you can see in 1940s, a typical photograph shows hand grinding cast components of magnesium in industries when they are mass subjected to different production levels. And here the exhibition shows in 1960s different components for different applications totally made of magnesium alloys. So in earlier days, magnesium was the wonder material where using magnesium, magnesium-based alloys and composites to fabricate different components because of its lightweight and high load-bearing capacity. So these are the different applications evolved for the past 60, 70 years, right from the lightweight aerospace components applications to present casing of the electron goods or automobile vehicles and bike structures and propellers, as well as when it comes to medical applications, degradable stents and degradable orthopedic implants, screws, bone fixing plates. And very recently, there was a project by Volkswagen, 1 liter car, where all the structures and components were actually planned to be produced by magnesium alloys. Now we'll see quickly different processing routes which can be adopted to develop components using magnesium alloys. When it comes to casting, basically we use casting to produce base alloys of magnesium, sometimes directly components of magnesium also. So there are several alloying elements we add to magnesium to develop novel magnesium alloys. For example, the classification of magnesium alloys can be done by considering the amount of zirconium. So if we have a considerable amount of zirconium, we can specify them as zirconium containing magnesium alloys. And if we don't have sufficient amount of zirconium, of course negligible amount also we count, then we can call that as a zirconium free alloys. So why we have taken zirconium as the criteria, presence of zirconium as the criteria to classify magnesium alloys, we will see in the next slides. So basically zirconium affects the microstructure of the magnesium. Hence, one kind of classification is based on zirconium. So magnesium alloys can be classified as zirconium free alloys and zirconium containing alloys. So in zirconium free alloys, basically some other alloys like magnesium aluminum zinc, and magnesium aluminum silicon, magnesium aluminum rare earths, magnesium aluminum alkaline earths, and magnesium lithium based alloys can be found in this group, while magnesium aluminum zinc, and magnesium aluminum silicon are the commercially available magnesium alloys which can be found commercially outside by different vendors. The other alloy systems are usually tailor-made and semi-commercial, and sometimes they are developed specifically for a few applications by individual research groups. So using protective gas mixture is very important, crucial in developing magnesium-based alloys or composites by casting route, such as SiO2 or SF6 mixed with CO2, dry air or N2, or the combination of gases which we should use to avoid oxidation of magnesium. Since magnesium is a highly reactive metal, so the liquid magnesium, if it come into contact with the oxygen, the oxidation problem is inevitable. So it is not suggested to produce cast components without using appropriate protecting environment. And alloys which contain zirconium. The grain refinement effect of zirconium was discovered in around 1940s, and that was the criteria based on which one type of classification of magnesium alloys is zirconium based. So this introduced the possibility of significantly improving mechanical and casting properties of magnesium alloys. Here in the table you can compare the unit cell parameters of magnesium and zirconium. Both are HCP crystal structure, hexagon closed pack, and you can see the unit cell parameters of magnesium and zirconium. Both are almost close. So what is the mechanism by which addition of zirconium yields better grain refinement in magnesium? There are several studies, and however the precise mechanism is not yet understood, but there are some proposals by which it is believed to be grain refinement agent in magnesium. The similarity of lattice parameters between magnesium and zirconium maybe the reason behind the grain refinement that we achieve in zirconium containing magnesium alloys. Another finding is the presence of a peritectic reaction between zirconium and magnesium close to the freezing point. Another third reason might be contributing to the grain refinement when we add zirconium to magnesium is the need for the liquid magnesium to be saturated by zirconium at or just above the freezing point. So when we see the phase diagram of magnesium and zirconium, that we understood that exactly at the freezing point, we find a peritectic reaction between the magnesium and zirconium. That might be the probable reason behind the grain refinement that we see when we add zirconium to magnesium. So this typical microstructure comparison will demonstrate what is the effect of zirconium addition on refining the microstructure of magnesium based alloys. So when we see first two figures, top two figures, which are free from zirconium, you can, with naked eye also, you can visibly observe the long elongated columnar grains. Whereas when we add zirconium to the pure magnesium diagram as shown in this figure, C and D, grain size was significantly decreased. So based on these observations, we can say the significant effect of zirconium on refining the magnesium microstructure. So this is one criteria by which magnesium alloys are classified. There are other, like aluminum, we don't have a specific nomenclature for magnesium alloys. However, depending on the adding alloying system, we say sometimes AZ series, or where we have aluminum and zinc as the constituting elements in the magnesium. Sometimes we say Al silicon series. That means only by varying different fractions of the alloying elements, we denote the family of the magnesium alloys, unlike aluminum, where we have 2 XXX series or 3 XXX series, 4 XXX series, etc. Like that, we don't have a fixed nomenclature to define magnesium alloys. However, we have a systematic procedure only by defining the constituting alloying elements, we name the magnesium alloys. For example, here you can see how magnesium microstructure is appeared. So again, observing the grains and grain boundaries, details of internal microstructure is a big challenge in magnesium materials. Number of etching agents we can use. Among them, the best etching agent is picric acid agent, which contains 5 grams of picric acid and 5 ml of water and 5 ml of acetic acid and ml of ethanol, which really reveals the microstructure, complete details of the grains and grain boundaries. These are typical microstructure of pure magnesium. And here you can see typical microstructures of Az31 magnesium alloy and Az91 magnesium alloy, where the aluminum percentage is increased from 3 to 9%. So if that is the case, you can see the presence of different intermetallics and formation of eutectic regions between alpha phase, those are the solid solution grains of magnesium and aluminum, and beta phase, where we see the development of intermetallic Mg17Al12. Between these two alpha and beta phases, presence of black eutectic regions also, as shown in this diagram, you can see. And this is another typical microstructure of Zd4 magnesium alloy, where zinc 4% and rare earths 1% is added to magnesium, and you can see clearly development of intermetallics at the grain boundaries, and also alpha grains, which are the solid solution of magnesium and zinc, the corresponding elemental composition also will demonstrate as the presence of intermetallics at the grain boundaries. So most of the cast structures, if you observe the microstructure of the cast magnesium alloys, since the solubility limit of the alloying elements is very minute, limited to less than 1% or less than 2% at the room temperature, if we add more amount of alloying elements, certainly these addition of more amount of alloying elements will result in development of intermetallic phases, which we see presenting at the grain boundaries. For example, here you can see in binary magnesium alloys, different alloying elements, how they affect the bulk properties of the alloy. Couple of properties we will see here. For example, here electric resistivity is highly influenced by the alloying elements. For example, if you take lead, like titanium, right? So here you can see too much variation, too much change in the electrical resistivity with a minute increment of the alloying elements. There are other alloying elements like zinc, lithium, cadmium. They have insignificant effect even we change a good amount of alloying element on electrical resistivity. This plot will help us to understand what is the role of different alloying elements on altering the thermal properties, for example, thermal conductivity. If you see addition of aluminum up to 3% from 1 to 2 will have a significant effect on decreasing thermal conductivity. Similarly, other elements like zinc and nickel, copper, everything you can compare here. So while we are selecting the alloying element in casting of magnesium alloys, these kinds of effects, the effect of alloying elements on altering different bulk properties must be considered in order to produce optimum alloy with optimum alloying composition. This is another kind of studies where we can see effect of addition of alloying elements on altering mechanical behavior, mechanical properties. For example, hardness, if you measure, addition of these alloying elements in varying percentages has a significant effect on increasing the hardness. For example, if you take aluminum, it's almost increases 2 to 3 times when we increase the percentage of aluminum in magnesium alloy. Another interesting phenomena here you can observe is, here you can see up to 0.016%, the presence of iron in magnesium has insignificant effect on corrosion property, whereas when the percentage of iron is increased from 0.016%, then you can see the corrosion rate is gradually increasing. In fact, it is shooting up to like anything. You can see up to 0.02, you can see the corrosion rate is higher compared with the 0.01. So therefore, when we are selecting the alloying elements in developing magnesium-based alloys through casting, the effect of alloying elements, individual alloying element, and their properties, their effect on bulk properties of the developed magnesium alloys must be understood. Otherwise, even minute percentage of alloying element will certainly influence the bulk properties, and we may lose the advantage by adding the alloying element to the magnesium, and we may end up with some disadvantages because of the presence of that element in excess quantities. So unlike other material systems like steels, aluminum alloys, and copper alloys, magnesium alloys have a great sensitivity towards the alloying elements by which that alloy is developed. That's why presence of alloying elements dictate the bulk properties. Hence, selecting the alloying element is crucial in developing magnesium-based alloys. Usually, pressure die casting is applied for a majority of cases in developing components by casting. Magnesium can be produced by virtually all other gravity and pressure casting methods such as sand casting, permanent and semi-permanent mold casting, investment casting, etc. The choice of a particular method depends upon many factors such as the number of castings required, the properties required, dimensions and shape of the part, and the castability of the alloy. So there's some typical schematic representations of pressure die casting, squeeze casting. I'm not going to explain those. And we can see typical photograph of the magnesium based component that is produced from casting. So the beauty of magnesium is it is well developed into any intricate shapes, any complex geometrical shapes through casting. And another kind of casting process is Texo casting, where we reheat the component and we melt it, and through forging we apply high amount of pressure on the dies and we'll get the finished casting component like a Texo forging process. When we compare the mechanical properties of squeeze casting and Texo casting components, and compared with the elongation also, here we can understand Tixo casting will give you better properties similar to the components which are having fine grained structure produced from squeeze casting compared with the coarse grained structures. So the advantage of fine grained structure what we achieve in squeeze casting can be directly achieved by Tixo casting process. So in an overall summary, casting of magnesium is complex due to high reactive nature because of the high oxidation possibility when it come into contact with oxygen or open air. So necessarily protective gas is required during the casting of magnesium based alloys or composites to develop components in casting. Role of alloying elements must be understood on the bulk properties of the alloy while selecting the percentage of alloying elements. It is not suggested to fabricate load-bearing structures since the cast structures themselves is not good compared with the rod structure in general material science principles. Whereas when it comes to magnesium, because of its HCP crystal structure, cast magnesium components are not suggested for load-bearing applications, and large grain sizes results in casting of magnesium. Adding grain refiners such as zirconium may be considered to decrease the grain size, grain growth. Preferably, pressure die casting is suggested, which produces advantage with the grain refined structures what we produce from squeeze casting. Still, there is a great need of developing new magnesium alloys since the area is evolving into new levels. So, development of new magnesium alloys still is a challenging, and there is a lot of promising in research areas of developing new magnesium alloys. Now we'll see quickly about forming of magnesium alloys. Here a schematic, some example diagrams will show you thin-walled tube profiles of AZ-driven sheets and AZ-driven tubes which are produced from the sheets. When it comes to forming of magnesium, since its crystal structure is hexagonal closed packed, it has only a less number of active slip systems, 3 slip systems only we'll find in any HCP crystal structure. The deformation of any material, particularly in crystal material, depends on the availability of a number of slip systems. In HCP crystal structures, in magnesium, for example, primary slip is seen in 1 bar to 0 closed back direction with the basal plane, and secondary slip you can see in 1 bar to 0 direction with vertical face planes as schematically shown in this diagram. At elevated temperatures, slip also can be seen with the pyramidal planes. Whereas in order to activate slip with the vertical face planes and the pyramidal planes, we need to provide certain heat. We need to heat the magnesium alloys to certain temperatures where we can deform by activating slip in vertical face planes as well as in pyramidal planes. That's why, due to the availability of number of slip systems at room temperature, deformation of magnesium is so mechanical process of less number of slip systems. Occurrence of non-basal slip in magnesium has a strong temperature dependence. In order to introduce plastic deformation in magnesium, we need to heat magnesium. None of these slip systems induce plastic strain along the crystallographic C direction at room temperature. On the other hand, deformation by twinning also helps us to aid plastic deformation of magnesium. Therefore, we'll see in microstructures of most of the magnesium and magnesium alloys presence of number of twins. Therefore, deformation of magnesium is difficult at ambient temperatures and processing at elevated temperatures is required. So when we see the magnesium alloys phase diagrams, typically, for example, AZ91 magnesium alloy, we should decide what is the temperature at which we should deform the magnesium alloys. We should adopt the deformation processes at different temperatures. So if you consider, for example, magnesium and aluminum alloy, AZ91 magnesium alloy, this is the phase diagram of magnesium aluminum system. You can notice at 430 degrees centigrade, you will be getting liquid state, liquid phase. Therefore, If you want to deform the magnesium alloys, which are having magnesium and considerable amount of aluminum as alloying element, the temperature, processing temperature must be less than 436. In fact, we should not go close to the 436 as we know, right? And in order to initiate the prismatic planes and pyramidal planes to sleep, at least we should heat above 225 degrees centigrade. Therefore, there is a range. So there is a band between the minimum and maximum temperatures, allowable maximum temperatures, where we can heat the magnesium alloys and we can deform comfortably. So understanding the alloy system is crucial in order to define the process minimum and maximum temperatures in magnesium based alloys plastic deformation. If we have more number of alloying elements, then the system will become more complex even further. For example, here you can see magnesium zinc phase diagram. For example, in Zd4 magnesium alloys, you can consider the temperatures 325 and 340. There is a narrow band where you will get another new intermetallic phase, magnesium 7 zinc 3 intermetallic phase, when we heat the alloy above 325 degrees centigrade. And above 340 degrees centigrade, we should not consider that temperature, since that will enter into liquid state. Here we have, even though pure magnesium melting point is 650 degrees centigrade, because of the presence of 4% of zinc in Zd4 magnesium alloy, it is not suggested to go beyond 340 degrees centigrade. That means our metal forming temperatures must be less than 340 degrees centigrade. So compared with the AZ91 magnesium alloy, Zd4 magnesium alloy has even lower band of temperature ranges to deform the magnesium. For example, if you consider AZ31 magnesium alloys, when we conduct the plastic deformation at room temperature by using a severe plastic deformation technique called equal channel angular pressing at 100 degrees centigrade, you can see here before ECAP and after ECAP, equal channel angular pressing, is a simple solid state plastic deformation technique where we use mechanical loads to introduce huge amount of strains. What we call severe plastic deformation technique. After processing also, material geometry will be preserved, maintained. But we introduce huge amount of shear strain into the material by repeatedly doing a number of cycles. This is the process. For example, here this schematic diagram shows you ECAP process, and the photographs, typical photographs demonstrate us the lack of deformation at lower temperatures for AZ31 magnesium alloy. You can see how the material has fractured during the process. Whereas the same material, AZ31 magnesium alloy, in the form of sheet, you can see when it is deformed between two dies, corrugated dies in groove pressing at 300 degrees centigrade, the same material has been successfully deformed because of the activation of the other slip systems of prismatic and prism planes. And the microstructure also you can see from unprocessed microstructure to processed microstructure. When we repeat the number of cycles at 300 degrees centigrade, since the annealing temperature of AZ31 magnesium alloy is around 340 degrees centigrade, therefore the processing temperature 300 is close to the annealing temperature. When we go for second cycle and third cycle of the same sheet subjected to groove pressing to achieve grain refinement, whatever the grain refinement we achieved in the first cycle, that we have lost after second and third cycles. The grain refinement effect has been nullified, and you can see the grain growth after third cycle also. So that indicates the processing temperature plays very important role in retaining the microstructure refinement that we achieved after groove pressing. Because at room temperature, deformation of magnesium is very difficult. Anyway, we have to heat at higher temperatures to process. When you are heating to certain temperatures which are close to the annealing temperatures, whatever the advantage or the benefit that we yield from the plastic deformation, severe plastic deformation to achieve grain refinement, that we may lose because of the annealing effect. So care must be taken in selecting the processing temperature of magnesium alloys if the grain refinement, achieving grain refinement and retaining the grain refinement is the prime objective. And you can see the grain size distribution of AZ magnesium alloy processed at different in different number of cycles at the same temperature, 300 centigrade. With the number of cycles, you can see the grain size has been increased. So this is because of the grain growth due to the exposure of the material for a prolonged time at a temperature that is close to the annealing temperature. But anyway, we are handicapped with the HCP crystal structure. Anyway, we have to heat the material to certain temperature, about 225 degrees, to plastically deform. Therefore, you must work properly to fix the temperature and fix the time that the material will expose to the heating for a heating duration in order to achieve the grain refinement benefit, or in order to retain the grain refinement benefit that we achieved during the initial cycles. And here you can see the same material, AZ magnesium alloy, when it is processed at 300 centigrade compared with the 100 degree centigrade in previous slides, but we have seen a total fracture of the material. But here you can see at the 300 centigrade, at a different number of passes, we have repeatedly processed the same sample up to 4 cycles. And you can see successfully the material is plastically deformed and no fracture was observed. The corresponding microstructures also shows large grains as well as combination of very fine grains. The development of these large grains, as I explained, because of the prolonged exposure of the material at 300 centigrade close to the annealing temperature, which triggered the grain growth, and whatever the grain refinement effect that we observed after first and second cycles has been lost up to some level in third and fourth cycles. However, the overall deformation was excellent, and compared with the unprocessed AZ3 magnesium alloy, we can see grain refined small grains in the microstructure. And the corresponding TM image also shows us the grain refinement in ECAP samples. Yeah, here you can see how the magnesium die casting components and magnesium sheets, which are produced from rolling rod products, will give us better mechanical properties. So you can see at the bottom magnesium die casting components with lower mechanical properties, elongation point of view as well as strength point of view. Whereas when it comes to magnesium sheets, you can see almost the elongation was doubled, and also the strength of the magnesium sheets were observed to be higher compared with the cast condition. Therefore, developing magnesium rod products is challenging, but using the recently developed metal processing technologies, if we are able to achieve, we can produce increased strength as well as increased ductility in these wrought magnesium products. In overall summary, when it comes to the forming of magnesium alloys, it is simple, can be formed, but not at the room temperature. There are some difficulties involved with the magnesium deformation. Therefore, it is required to be heated above 225 degrees centigrade, where these prismatic planes and as well as pyramidal planes also will get activated. Therefore, sufficient number of slip systems will be accommodated to plastically deform magnesium at high temperatures. So magnesium-based components subjected to forming operations exhibit better mechanical, corrosion and wear properties compared with cast components. Care must be exercised to retain the microstructure in cyclic processing, because we are again and again heating the same material to a temperature close to the annealing temperature. Therefore, whatever the benefit that we achieved during the plastic deformation in altering the microstructure, in reducing the grain size, that we may lose because of the working temperature that is close to the annealing temperature. Using a solid lubricant such as molybdenum disulfide or graphene is essential in deformation of magnesium. Specially designed furnaces are required, where parallelly we should provide heating as well as some mechanical loading. So forming operations can be done at relatively lower loads for magnesium alloys compared with the other non-ferrous alloys, which is an advantage. When it comes to welding of magnesium can be done with the conventional welding processes, both the fusion and non-fusion welding processes, with a few technical challenges which can address by taking precautions that we'll see in a couple of slides. The basic principle of welding here is when we bring two surfaces of any material in welding, if we don't find valleys and peaks, or if you don't find presence of oxide layers or any absorbed layers or any contamination between the two surfaces, then the all atoms present at both the surfaces, if they come close together to a distance called interatomic equilibrium distance, where atoms themselves they form strong bonds, if we are able to bring all the atoms at the surfaces to such interatomic equilibrium surfaces, then a perfect metallurgical continuity will be established. That is what we call theoretically welding. But here practically we'll find, even for mirror finished polished surfaces also, presence of numerous valleys and peaks, as well as presence of oxide layers. Therefore, either we have to apply higher amount of loads by applying pressure, we can suppress these valleys and peaks, or either we can apply additional amount of atoms of material A or material B belong to both the surfaces in the form of molten metal by melting a filler material or by melting the base material itself. So therefore, in welding, either we apply pressure or sometimes we apply heat, or sometimes both together, pressure and heat we apply. The main objective of applying heat or pressure is to bring maximum number of atoms which belong to both the surfaces which are intended to be joined to a distance equal to interatomic equilibrium distance. If we have more number of such atomic pairs at the interface, the distance between them is equal to equilibrium interatomic distance, then we have strong joint. So the strength and the quality of the weld joint depends on the number of atomic pairs which are having between them a distance equal to this equilibrium spacing distance. So the objective of applying heat or pressure in welding is to bring as much as more number of atomic pairs to this equilibrium distance. So in magnesium, the oxidation problem is higher. Readily magnesium get oxidized when it come into contact with oxygen in open air. Certainly we should apply heat or pressure. So oxidation is a big problem with magnesium, and also the melting point and boiling point of magnesium are lower. Therefore, in fusion welding processes, sometimes we get temperatures more than 1000, 2000, 3000 degrees centigrade in the flame. Then at such temperature, magnesium may get evaporated. That is another technical problem. And overheated quartz grains are resulted in the magnesium weld joints, and hot cracks during the cooling process. Once the welding process is over, development of cracks is another big problem in magnesium alloys, and presence of pores, and also welding heat stresses are the usual challenges associated with the welding of magnesium. So generally the weldability of wrought magnesium alloy is better than cast magnesium alloys. So these are typical weldable magnesium alloys, and the corresponding grades you can compare here. Most of the magnesium alloys except ZK series are good, or at least very good category. And these are the available composition of the magnesium alloys welding wides, and you can observe here aluminum is the major fraction of the alloying element among the all available welding wires, and you can see the distribution of the chemical composition in different welding wires. And what kind of alloy is welded by what kind of suitable welding wires you can get from this table. And here you can compare, depending on the chemical composition of the constituting alloy, appropriate welding alloy wire is selected, magnesium alloy wire is selected to complete fusion welding process. Fusion welding process where the welding wire and the base material both together they melt, and they provide required melt pool in the weld joint. Welding of alloys similar and dissimilar materials. Dissimilar metal welding is influenced by many factors such as different melting points. Dissimilar metals usually they possess different melting points. Therefore, it is challenging to come amicable melting temperature between them, and the coefficient of thermal expansion of both the alloys and heterogeneity in chemical composition and formation of intermetallics from the alloying elements in liquid state is another big challenge when we are joining dissimilar metallic systems. Among them, one, if it is magnesium. It is more difficult than the common welding processes, especially for magnesium and aluminum alloys. So welding process usually adopted for magnesium alloys is tungsten inert gas welding, laser welding, laser TIG hybrid welding, friction stir welding, and diffusion bonding. Here you can see typical microstructures at the cross sections of magnesium aluminum joint. You can see on the left side interfacial microstructure of diffusion bonded magnesium aluminum joint. On the right side, you can see the cross section microstructure of magnesium aluminum lap joint obtained by laser hybrid welding. You can see both the base materials, aluminum as well as magnesium, are mixed at the interface, and you can see here some zones on left side A and B where magnesium has dissolved in aluminum as well as aluminum also dissolved in magnesium, and result some solid solution grains in addition to the formation of intermetallics. Okay, so when we mix magnesium and aluminum dissimilar metals through welding at the interface, we will find certainly formation of some intermetallics. The formation of these intermetallics in weld joint is a big challenge because these brittle phases will dictate the quality of the weld joint. Among the welding of magnesium processes, among the available processes, the solid state processes are promising. Among them, friction stir welding is widely used for the past 20 years, more than 20 years, in which a non-consumable rotating tool is inserted into the materials at the joint where the materials are intended to be joined. In friction stir welding, when the rotating tool is inserted into the joint, the process is completed in 3 different steps. First, plunge and dwelling, and then traveling in a traverse direction, and then retract. You can see here the schematic diagram as well as the typical photograph obtained during the friction stir welding of non-ferrous metals. At the cross section, you can see the nugget zone. Usually in fusion welding process, we will see weld zone where cast microstructure is appeared because of the solidification of the molten pool in the weld zone. Whereas in the friction stir welding, you can see the stir zone where the material does not undergo melting. However, within the solid state itself, material will be subjected to plastic deformation, and a perfect metallurgical continuity between the two material interface at the interface, two metal surfaces can be achieved. Usually it contains a nugget zone and thermomechanical affected zone and heat affected zone, and then adjacent to that base materials as shown in this cross section of the friction stir welded alloy. Here we see a couple of joints which we developed by friction stir welding of similar and dissimilar magnesium alloys. Typical cross-sectional microstructure of similar AZ31, AZ31 magnesium alloy can be seen here. With respect to the processing parameters, at all processing parameters, we achieved a perfect weld joint, whereas the processing parameters, particularly tool rotation speed, has shown significant role on altering the grain size in the weld joint. So the weld joints were subjected to corroding environment, exposed to corroding environment and subjected to corrosion, and then tensile samples were prepared from those samples, and we investigated the effect of corroding environment on the mechanical failure also, and friction stir welded joint has shown better strength compared with the base material because of the smaller grains which we achieved in the weld joint in solid state itself. And these are the studies of joining dissimilar magnesium alloys within the magnesium system, dissimilar magnesium alloys, AZ31 and AZ91 magnesium alloys, and you can see the photographs of the joints and the defects and the combination of process parameters that we have adopted. And most of the cases we end up with a poor joint because of the hot cracks and the tunneling defect. Whereas at 1400 RPM and 25 mm per minute, we have achieved a sound joint without any cracks and without any tunneling defects and other defects. The main processing parameters that we observed in friction stir welding, two important process parameters are tool rotational speed and tool feed, in addition to other minor influencing process parameters. Among them, with higher speed, the generation of heat will be higher because of the friction between the tool surface and the workpiece, and also friction between the pin surface and the rotating workpiece material. If the feed rate is lower, the heat concentration will be higher in the processed zone. Therefore, higher tool speeds and lower feed rates are usually resulted with more heat concentration in the weld zone, and which may yield to defects as well as grain growth. If at all defects are not present, grain growth. At the same time, slow tool speeds and higher feed rates also will not give sufficient heat at the stir zone, and we also end up with a defect without a proper quality joint. Therefore, getting optimum process parameters is crucial in friction stir welding, particularly when you are joining dissimilar, not only dissimilar magnesium alloys, in any dissimilar alloys. Here we optimized the process parameters and we observed defective free weld joint at 1400 speed and 25 mm per minute feed. And you can see the cross section of the weld joint. You can see on the right side AZ31 and also opposite AZ91, and the magnified images also show the nugget zone is free from any defects, and further magnified image in the cross section of the weld joint also shows the materials were properly stirred and a perfect metallurgical joint was achieved. And interestingly, the intermetallics which are present in AZ91 magnesium alloy before welding were actually distributed as small particles. The network like intermetallic structure was broken before welding in AZ91 as we observed in the base material. In the nugget zone as a small intermetallics. So the advantage of decreased intermetallic, brittle intermetallic in the weld zone will improve the strength. Also, the advantage of smaller grain size improves the strength of the weld joint. Another dissimilar magnesium and aluminum weld joint was successfully carried out by friction stir welding, and here you can see the cross-sectional microstructure indicates the joint is predominantly by mechanical mixing of the material instead of metallurgical continuity, unlike in the dissimilar magnesium alloys. However, when these joints are exposed to corroding environment in NaCl solution, you can see here on the top side the cross-sectional samples which were exposed to the corroding environment in NaCl solution for 3 days, and we can observe as the immersion time is increased, as the corrosion exposing time is increased, you can see the aluminum pieces were remained and the opposite magnesium material was severely affected and degraded because of the galvanic corrosion. Since magnesium is usually acted as ion when it is coupled with the other metals, magnesium acts as anode, and other material, maybe steel or aluminum or copper, whatever with other metal, usually which are having higher corrosion potential, act as cathode, and a successful galvanic couple is established between the magnesium and the counterpart. Therefore, magnesium will be gradually degraded. So therefore, dissimilar metals, particularly joining dissimilar metals, may have ill effect on the corrosion performance of the magnesium. If at all during the application, if the structures are exposed to corroding environment, if they come into contact with the corroding environment, special care must be taken to avoid the corrosion problem of the magnesium. Another magnesium and aluminum dissimilar joint was also performed by friction stir welding. Here you can see AZ91 magnesium alloy with the aluminum 6063 aluminum alloy. Number of processing parameters have been adopted to develop a sound joint without defects, and after carrying different experiments, number of experiments, we have obtained an optimum set of process parameters at 1100 RPM with 25 mm per minute. And most of the defects which were observed in the joints of magnesium alloy and aluminum alloy are, you can see here in this illustration that demonstrates which are excess material flush and hot cracks. So these are the common defects that we observe when we try to join magnesium with aluminum using friction stir welding process. And the cross section, the successful weld joint cross section also indicated the mechanical mixing of materials from both AZ91 and aluminum alloy. Unlike in similar magnesium alloys, here the metallurgical continuity was poor. Majority of the area, you can see the mechanical mixing of both aluminum and magnesium base alloys in the stir zone, which actually helped us to form a strong bonding. However, at the bottom magnified images, you can see some metallurgical continuity between the both alloys, magnesium and aluminum alloys in the nugget zone. So therefore, the dissimilar magnesium aluminum joints usually are appeared with a combination of metallurgical continuity as well as mechanical mixing of the material. Together, these two factors help us to develop sound weld joint. Here, lap joint of magnesium alloy and aluminum alloy were developed by same friction stir welding process, where we have placed aluminum alloy sheet on the top of the magnesium alloy sheet. Since the aluminum has more deformation compared with the magnesium alloys, so we selected aluminum alloy on the top of the magnesium alloy sheet. And you can see the typical photographs and schematic diagrams of the process. And interestingly, you can see the joint formation between the aluminum and magnesium base materials, and the defect-free joint length was measured in the width of the weld joint, and we observed with the increased penetration depth. Since it is lap joint, tool penetration play very important role, and we altered the penetration depths with 0.05 mm. With the increased penetration depths, we observed defect zones were increased. So therefore, the optimum penetration depth was found to be 0.2 mm. That is the excess penetration that we give to the tool to penetrate into the joint in addition to the actual pin length. And in the successful produced joint at the interface, we can find the formation of different phases between the magnesium and aluminum alloys, where these phases were examined by XRD, as shown here at the bottom. Also, you can see in the nugget zone combination of magnesium and aluminum regions. These phases were examined by XRD, and the phase were identified with the formation of aluminum magnesium intermetallics. And the samples were tested for the mechanical properties. The shear stress was found to be higher with the higher penetration, whereas the percentage elongation was decreased with the higher penetration. So this can be claimed to the decreased length of the weld joint with the increased penetration of the tool. And another magnesium alloy that is having zinc as well as rare earths as the constituting alloying elements was processed by friction stir processing. That is the another solid state processing technique developed by friction stir welding, and the properties were evaluated. And interestingly, after processing, you can see here in this scanning electron microscope images in the stir zone, the intermetallic phase was totally disappeared, and in some regions, as shown in the bottom image, in some regions, the network-like structure as observed in the base material, top ZU41 SM image, the network-like structure of intermetallic magnesium zinc intermetallic phase was totally disturbed, and discontinuous small particles distributed in the matrix can be seen in the bottom FS speed region. So that indicates this excess amount of zinc has been introduced into the magnesium lattice, and supersaturated magnesium zinc grains were developed, and the intermetallic percentage was decreased. So these two factors actually influenced the improved mechanical properties and machining properties of the same ZU41 magnesium alloy in other studies. So in overall summary, welding of magnesium alloys is technically challenging. Productive gas is essential to avoid oxidation in fusion welding. Formation of intermetallics is higher in fusion welding processes. Solid state welding techniques address the issues associated with the liquid state welding. Welding of magnesium with the dissimilar alloys increases the complexity. Friction welding, friction stir welding are simple and promising welding routes in solid state welding, which avoid the limitations usually associated with the fission welding of magnesium alloys. Now quickly we will see the machining of magnesium alloys. In fact, compared with the aluminum, cast iron, mild steel and other stainless steel materials, welding of magnesium, machining of magnesium is simple since it has a good machinability. Usually it is defined from the cutting forces and the shape of the chips. That in terms of machinability, magnesium and its alloys have the best properties compared to all of the other usual structural materials. These properties include chip formation, cutting forces, cutting speed, depth of cut, surface finish, and tool life better compared with the other material systems. But the challenges are, in case of magnesium, the temperature generated during machining are low due to its high specific heat and thermal conductivity that led the heat to be rapidly dissipated. Magnesium presents a significant ignition risk when the process temperature exceeds 450 centigrade. So while machining magnesium, selecting the coolant is crucial. Even without coolant also we can machine magnesium, because as we have seen here, the heat dissipation capacity for magnesium alloys is very, very high compared with the steels and aluminum. However, if you are using coolants, we should select such that the coolant must be free from water. Because of the risk of ignition, the decisions related to the use or not using cooling lubricant system is critical. Additionally, it should be considered the danger associated with the use of water-based fluid due to the magnesium reactivity with water to form hydrogen, flammable and potentially explosive as shown in this equation. So therefore, it is suggested not to use water-based coolants. Dry machining of magnesium can be possible, can be conveniently done. If at all, if you would like to use coolant, it is suggested to use water-free coolants. And these are the significant studies done on magnesium-based alloys on machining with different machining conditions and different machining operations. And most of these studies established the machinability of different magnesium alloys in wide combination of machining parameters, machining conditions. Here a typical study what we have done we'll see. We have processed a magnesium AZ91 alloy by friction stir processing, and we have developed fine grained structure as shown here in this diagram. You can compare the microstructure of ZU for AZ91 magnesium alloy base material and as well as the friction stir processed material. In friction stir processed material, interestingly, the secondary phase was completely decreased, significantly decreased, and the grain size compared with the base AZ91 magnesium alloy, friction stir processed AZ91 magnesium alloy has given excellent grain refinement. Here we have two important factors. Grain size is very, very small, and the amount of intermetallic phase is also compared with the base material significantly decreased. So these two important factors has given better machining behavior. However, in the measurement of the cutting forces, increased cutting forces was observed, whereas the quality of the produced whole edge was investigated, and the delamination effect, the material removal at the edge was found to be excellent for smaller grained AZ91 magnesium alloy. So the phenomena is, in unprocessed AZ91 magnesium alloy, we have two distinct regions of different mechanical properties. One is alpha region and another one is high brittle intermetallic region at the grain boundaries. Whereas in the grain refined AZ91 magnesium alloy, we have uniform distribution of this intermetallic as a excess amount of dissolved alloying element in magnesium lattice, and also decreased intermetallic phase, which decreased the heterogeneity in the distribution of the mechanical properties within the structure. Therefore, even though mechanical during machining, even though the strength, because of the increased strength, higher cutting forces were recorded, the produced surface was, compared with the unprocessed alloy, has shown excellent finishing. This is another typical studies what we have done. We altered the microstructure of AZ91 magnesium alloy by heat treatment process, and we observed with lower amount of intermetallic and decreased eutectic regions of alpha and beta, better machining behavior was observed with the increased, of course, with increased cutting forces. And the resulted chip morphologies were also studied, and the combination of morphologies were observed, and continuous chip formation with the lower cutting forces were observed for the heat treated AZ91 magnesium alloy. When it comes to the summary, magnesium is a material with a good machinability in comparison with other usual structural materials. High cutting speeds can be used, consuming low quantities of power and letting attain good surface finish. However, magnesium presents drawbacks for machining, such as the ignition risk when temperatures are reaching beyond 450 centigrade, and the relativity of magnesium to form hydrogen atmosphere must be also taken into account. All machining operations such as turning, drilling, milling can be conveniently done by any cutting tools on magnesium alloys. Quickly, we'll see a couple of slides on magnesium-based composites by powder metallurgy route. We have adopted ball milling, where we mixed the powders of magnesium as well as calcium phosphate ceramic phases, what we call hydroxyapatite, for biomedical applications. And we have done for 20 hours of ball milling at 200 RPM. And we have done spark plasma sintering of these ball milled powders at 450 centigrade by applying 50 megapascals load for 10 minutes in vacuum. You can see the SM images and TM images of the hydroxyapatite powder that was dispersed in magnesium powder, and also after ball milling, the morphology of the magnesium particles which have transformed as thin flakes in these images. The corresponding TM image also shows us the well distribution of HA crystals on the magnesium particles, as shown here in the bright field as well as the clearly in the dark field images after 20 hours of ball milling of magnesium hydroxyapatite powder. And here a typical one particle of magnesium coated with hydroxyapatite crystals can be clearly observed here. That was observed after ball milling. And then sintering, we clearly noticed the retention of hydroxyapatite as it is, the stability of the hydroxyapatite phase as it is in the centered composites. And then we observed the formation of lamellar structure, microlamellar structured composites, because the ball milling resulted to deform the magnesium particles into thin flakes. The thin flakes were then sintered, and the sintered structure has shown here lamellar microstructure. One typical elemental mapping also confirms the presence of calcium and phosphorus in these composites. And the corresponding composites were subjected to corrosion, and then the sample surface were investigated compared with the composites where magnesium has undergone higher degradation with numerous cracks. And the electrochemical test also confirmed among all the compositions, 8% and 10% composites have shown lower amount of corrosion. Of composites through ball help us to the magnesium mechanical properties as well as corrosion properties as shown here. Though then the toxicity studies towards the 3T3 cells also, L6 cells also can be seen here, that indicates, and also the SM images clearly shows the presence of cells spreading on the composites, that indicates the developed composites are biocompatible for biomedical bone implant applications. Then overall conclusions, magnesium alloys are promising lightweight materials which can be processed by most of the conventional and advanced manufacturing processes. During casting, the casting magnesium alloys can be done at various temperatures. Selection of working temperature is crucial in metal forming of magnesium alloys, and welding of magnesium to form oxide layers. Therefore, solid state welding routes can be used, which can eliminate the issues associated with the fusion welding of magnesium alloys. And magnesium alloys exhibit high machinability but high inflammable nature if catches fire during machining, which must be noted while selecting the appropriate coolant. And developing magnesium based composites by powder metallurgy is another promising way where we can tailor the composition of magnesium composites by choosing appropriate dispersing phases. However, sintering must be carried out in a protective environment or vacuum to avoid oxidation issues. Since magnesium is highly active, it can immediately get oxidized. So there is a lot of scope in research and development of new magnesium alloys and composites and processing of magnesium alloys and composites by various material processing technologies. I would like to acknowledge my research guides and faculty and scientists at different institutions and organizations who helped me to complete the research works, and my PG, PhD and UG students. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, sir. If anybody has any queries, please you can ask or you can post through chat box also. Okay, I think nobody has any questions. We will have third session of today at 3 o'clock. I will start the meeting at 2:45, and I request all of you to join for the third session also. It will be very useful session. It will be taken by a professor from NIT Warangal. So thank you all for joining. So we will meet again at 2:45. I will start the session. 3 o'clock our session will be started. Thank you.
Informative session. Thank you, sir. Ratnaswamy, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.